All right, let's get into it. Today we're taking a satirical look at modern education, and it's a story that might feel a little too real for a lot of us. We're talking about the tragicomedy where the whole point isn't really about learning, but about something else entirely.
So let's just kick things off with this big question. Is our whole education system really just a game? Less about actual enlightenment and more about just learning how to win, following some pretty specific and frankly, kind of absurd rules.
So here's the path we're going to follow. We'll start with the paper chase. Then we'll step inside the degree factory. After that, it's time for the exam hall drama, and we'll meet the educated unemployed. And finally, we'll try to figure out the moral of the story. Okay, so Act 1, the paper chase. This is really the heart of the whole critique, right? It's this idea that the noble quest for knowledge has somehow been traded in for this frantic race to collect certificates. The goal isn't wisdom anymore, it's just getting that piece of paper.
And every good story has to have a villain. In this one, it's what we're calling the rote learning monster. Just picture this beast that literally gobbles up creativity and critical thinking. And what does it spit out? Students who all look the same, armed with amazing grades, but almost no practical real-world wisdom to show for it.
And what you end up with is this huge split. Look at this. On one side, you have what education should be about: creativity, wisdom, a genuine transformation of the person. But on the other side, you have the reality that's being critiqued, a hollow ritual that's all about percentages and passing exams.
Which brings us to our next stop on the tour, inside the degree factory. This is where the satire really hones in on how our schools and universities have started to feel less like temples of learning and more like, businesses with assembly lines.
And of course, this factory has its cast of characters. You've got the teacher, whose main motivation is just to get through the syllabus. Their survival tactic? Sometimes it's just indifference, teaching strictly by the book. And then you have the student, who's become this clever player, just trying to pass the exam. They learn pretty fast it's not about what you know, but how you play the game. Flattering the examiner, using shortcuts, whatever it takes. And yeah, the whole process really is like a conveyor belt. Step 1, you pay a huge entry fee. Step 2, you're taught exactly how to pass the test, but not necessarily how to think critically. And then Step 3, you pop out at the end with a big stamp that just says employable, whether you actually are or not. Now we get to the big climax of this whole tragic comedy, the exam hall drama. And trust me, this isn't just about a test. In this world, the exam is the ultimate theatrical performance, full of absurdity and some seriously high stakes. And this is where the satire gets really sharp. It makes fun of those exam questions that have absolutely nothing to do with real life. It frames cheating not just as some sneaky trick, but as a symptom of a much bigger problem. And it even jokes that your grade might depend less on what you wrote and more on, say, how heavy your answer sheet is or whether the examiner had a good cup of tea that morning. At the end of the day, the whole thing is painted as a total lottery. As this critique so perfectly puts it, the evaluation process is a lottery, where your future depends on the mood of a stranger. Kind of makes the whole thing feel pretty random, doesn't it?
So what happens when our student finally wins this game? Well, that takes us to the final act, the educated unemployed. And this, right here, is the tragic punchline to the whole joke.
So, after all those years on the factory line, after mastering the high-stakes performance of the exam, the graduate finally gets the grand prize, this beautiful gold-trimmed degree, the ultimate symbol of their success.
But what else do they actually walk away with? Well, the satire makes a pretty harsh point here. A fancy degree in one hand, and, absolutely nothing in their pockets.
And here it is. This is the real tragedy hiding behind all the comedy. The system did exactly what it set out to do. It taught the student how to pass an exam, but it completely failed them in its true purpose. It never taught them how to live, how to solve real problems, or how to actually function in the working world.
So what is the moral of this whole story? This isn't just about getting a few laughs, it's satire. It's supposed to make us a little uncomfortable. It's really a serious critique of the fundamental values our entire education system is built on.
First up, the system seems to value the degree more than the actual human being who earned it. The piece of paper has become more important than the person.
Next, the whole process of education has turned into a kind of empty ritual, totally disconnected from any sort of real, meaningful personal transformation.
And finally, the main currency in this system is the percentage, the grade. Actual intelligence, curiosity, creativity, all of that gets sacrificed for the sake of a higher number on a report card. So that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If our education system really has become this tragicomedy, it kind of forces you to ask, who's writing the script? And maybe, just maybe, what part are we playing in it? Thanks for tuning in.